Hi guys, Mrs. Karaz here. We are looking at Chapter 18, Section 3 today, which is Cities Grow and Change. So urbanization is the word that we use to describe the rapid growth of city populations. And we had a lot of urbanization happening at this point in history. As industries boomed, right, more factories are developing, the cities that industries thrive in are growing. And shockingly, people want to live close to where they work, right? Nobody loves a big, long commute. You want to be able to go to work and get home and be able to relax as soon as possible. So really big cities tended to grow near waterways because they offered an easy way to transport industrial goods. So New York, San Francisco, Chicago are among the big cities that saw a real surge in population at this time period. And thanks to some technology that's developed at this time, cities are able to grow in more ways than one. So we have public transportation becoming popular at this time. This includes electric streetcars and underground subways. And what was nice about public transportation was that it allowed easy access to the cities from a distance, right? So think about it. If you lived in Brooklyn and worked in Manhattan and there was no public transportation, you'd have a really hard time getting to work and going about your day-to-day life. But with technology like this, you can move outside of the exact city you work in. You can move outside of Manhattan, let's say, and get back into work fairly easily. So this really helps give rise to the idea of the suburbs. More rural, but rural is the wrong word for it, community just outside of urban city centers. We also have steel bridges developed at this time, like the Brooklyn Bridge, which we're going to look at more closely, and these let people commute into the city with cars. So you're just seeing a lot more options. The city can spread outward thanks to these public transportation technologies. Then we also have the city spreading upward. Thanks to skyscrapers that are built at this time. And previously there were limits to really how high and how tall you could build a building. But thanks to advances in steel, like the Bessemer process, right, which made really strong steel for a very cheap price, it was more feasible to build these really tall buildings. And that means that a higher population can live and work in cities. We can grow vertically. The elevator also became popular at this time thanks to the fact that buildings were moving on up. So looking at the anatomy of a city, living patterns in cities changed as the cities themselves expanded. So often you would find that poor families lived towards the city's center. Middle-class families lived farther out in row houses or apartment buildings. And rich families built homes on the outskirts of the cities. I included a map of modern New York, but obviously New York City breaks this pattern, and I don't know if there is a set pattern that it really follows. Of course, urban life wasn't without its problems, so neighborhoods became overpopulated at this time, which meant that people and buildings were forced way too close together. One big problem that arose because of that was a threat of fire, right? Fires can spread more quickly, like we saw with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire that we studied previously. So adding on to this, tenements, or buildings divided into many tiny apartments, developed in city slums around this time. And we're going to look more closely at what life was like in tenements, but the reality is that many apartments had no heat, no windows, no indoor plumbing. Several families would have to share a single bathroom, whether it was like at the end of the hall or even an outhouse occasionally. And these types of living conditions, which came from the overpopulation that we saw, overcrowding that we saw on the last slide, these are going to lead to bigger problems, right? If there's only one bathroom, guess what? Hygiene is going to be an issue. Are you going to fight with your neighbors to take a shower every single day? Doubtful. Proper disposal of garbage is going to be an issue. There's too many people living in too small of a place. And both of these things combine to lead to a higher concentration of illness for tenement residents. We have a lot of people living in close quarters. They aren't properly cleaning themselves or their apartments because they're incapable of it, not because they don't want to, right? And this means people are going to get sick pretty dang quickly. Really, authorities started to think that conditions in tenements and really cities in general were unacceptable. So eventually city officials decided to make some improvements. They installed street lights to make it safer to be on city streets at night. Fire, sanitation, and police departments were set up based on like zone districts to make sure that these issues were being handled. There were public health officials who were hired to treat people who were sick and to aid in disease prevention, tell people what they needed to do to stop themselves from getting sick, right? There was no like, Google, how do I not catch a cold? And it tells me to wash my hands and use hand sanitizer. Didn't exist. We also had a lot of religious groups stepping up at this time. They helped serve the poor, provide food, shelter, and medical care, give people that couldn't afford positive living conditions the opportunity to access them. So we've got some settlement houses popping up at this time as well. And settlement houses are centers offering help to the poor. In settlement houses, patrons were taught English, they participated in sport and music programs, and they found daycare for their children. So again, it's a way to meet the needs of people who may not be able to afford these services independently. Jane Addams, a woman from a rich family, established a settlement called Hull House in the slums of Chicago, one that we'll be taking a look at more closely soon. So these last few slides are all about different exciting things that occurred at this time. So one thing that people found really exciting were the idea of department stores. And when we say department stores, we think of stores like Macy's, like Lord & Taylor, JCPenney. And the allure of these types of stores is that they offered many different goods all in one place, right? So previously, if you needed shoes, you went to the shoe store, and if you needed a shirt, you went to the shirt store, and if you needed pants, guess what? There's a separate pants store. But department stores have it all in one. And this simplified shopping for city dwellers, many of whom didn't have cars, right, like us. It's hard to go from place to place to place. And it allowed for one-stop shopping, which increased sales. If you need shoes and you go to a department store to buy them, and you happen to see a sweater that you like there as well, hey, why not, right? That's going to be good for our economy. Oh, sorry, there's something on my iPad and I just made it a laser. Another exciting thing, leisure activities became more popular at this time. After putting in so many long, difficult hours at work, people really wanted to spend their time at home enjoying themselves. And to that end, cities became centers of entertainment to keep people happy and busy during their time off. Museums, orchestras, art galleries, theaters, circuses, parks, zoos all became really popular with people who wanted to enjoy their leisure time. And the last slide for today, sports became much more popular at this time in history. Professional sports developed after the Civil War, and baseball really became America's pastime. The Cincinnati Red Stockings, which are ironically now the White Sox, were the first professional Major League Baseball team. The National League of Professional Baseball Clubs developed in the 1870s, So sports, the face of sports then was not the same as the face of sports as we know them today. African Americans were banned from playing baseball on white teams, and Negro League Baseball was formed in the 1880s to allow African Americans to have their own place to play sports. We will discuss this more in the next few weeks, I believe. Basketball and football also increased in popularity, so overall we're seeing lots of things that people want to do to enjoy their time and relax when they're away from the crazy factory life. That's it for today. Have a good afternoon, guys. Bye.